All right, ladies and gentle
Woo!
people. Let me get this question
We
pushed aside.
are here,
Hello.
boys and girls and anybody else, all inclusive. Sir links a lot. Welcome to a very special show because it might be our last show for a little while, actually. Chris is about ready to take off on a big nomadic entrepreneur adventure,
Digital
and
nomad. Digital nomad.
yeah, yeah. And I'll be here, just manning the
Well,
fort.
actually, that's not completely true because well, maybe the stream will be canceled next week, but after that, I'm gonna be out in the house out there.
I thought the internet was real
Well, no,
bad
I'm,
though.
I'm gonna be living in a separate house out there. That's actually in the small town, so it's got high-speed internet and
Oh,
stuff.
all right. Well, I guess it's not a special show
So
then.
yeah, we might cancel next week, but after that, we'll be good till I leave, which will be July or so, I guess. Early July,
Right
maybe. I'm
on.
not really sure, but we'll see. Um,
Well, okay. Let's talk about something else. Me and Chris both got new laptops recently, and I know some of y'all are the type that are, really on top of the newest trends. You get a new computer every year or season or whatever you want to call it, and it's always, perfect. I think I've had the last computer that I had for probably 6 years or so, 5, 6 years, and that's
that's about right.
exclusively what I've been using. Which that's I beat my laptops down. I wear them out like an old farm tractor or
I'd say
something.
five or six
Whatever
years is pretty
analogy.
Know.
Is it?
Yeah,
I
for a
feel like I don't know.
computer,
I feel
it's
like
not
a
a
lot of
phone.
buddies. Yeah, true. I mean, it served me well. And let me tell you, breaking that computer down, though I was excited to get started with this new one, it's been awesome so far. We're working through some kinks, but it's seems solid. But breaking that last one down, it's like I get a little nostalgic every time. It's like selling an old car that you had a lot of road trips with or something. You look at it and you're like, you did me good. You did
I don't
good.
know why.
I might put it up on the wall
I
or
don't really have
something.
any kind of attachment to computers. When they're
Or
outdated,
to
one of my
anything. Chris is kind of soulless for those of you that don't know him too well. Ice Queen is what we call him over here.
literally no one's ever called me that. But yeah, I don't know. I just don't really have. Do you have attachments to your phones?
No, not at all. I could care less about. Usually, if I get the newest phone, I'm pretty disappointed in it and wish I had my old one back.
I'd have like more of an attachment to like a car.
Yeah, same for
Um,
sure.
not so much.
But like with a laptop though, especially like when I consider, I had one before that, which is the business or the start of, m me starting my own business. So that will always resonate as like, the first laptop I had that, I tried to make moves with. And then this last one was really the one that it's like you can look at those two laptops as like a really big timeline. And kind of imagine how much growth happened and opportunity happened just based off, a like what it was probably $1,500 when it was brand new, $1,500 piece of machinery, and then kind of thinking about
This
that
this
and
is like
imagining where it's
you.
gone over the years is like I don't know. I think it's pretty
This is
interesting.
you on the path to
But
becoming your father, Nick.
well, how so? How do you
Being
figure that?
this like nostalgic, like sentimental, soft
Well,
old guy.
but see, but that I've always been somebody who's collected a lot of things. But I don't necessarily just like things without like their history or without like some explanation of what they are. So like I've got a lot of stuff like that. So I feel like maybe I do put more sentimental value into objects than like you would. Or there's no doubt about it. I mean, like I'm more of a hoarder in comparison to
Hey,
you.
Surrender, what's up, man? How you doing today? Sorry.
Hello.
Yeah, I don't know.
Chris is really minimal. I'm kind of a junk
Yeah,
collector.
I see things more as like just like some kind of like tool that like lets me do whatever I want to do with it, but I don't really have any kind of much of an attachment to them. Even with like my cameras and stuff, they're like very they're I have actually like a small box of things that I'm like very sentimental about, kind of like small little trinkets and stuff.
Interesting.
But they're very few and far between. But they're like once I've like bonded with them, they're like very sentimental to me, and probably like things I'll probably like keep like for my entire life, really. Like
Interesting.
I would never consider throwing away, and they serve like absolutely no use to me at all.
Hmm.
Um, like for example, one of them is an Elvis action figure.
Cool. What, you gonna give us the story?
I won't give the story, but it's just an action figure I somehow got a hold of during college days, and it was just around a lot. But I don't know. I can't really go much more into it than that. But it was just it was important for some reason. Um, or I have like a rock from a trip that I took that was very special. I don't know, just stupid stuff like that, rather than like yeah, like a computer or something. I guess I don't know. But
Hmm.
yeah. Anyways, I don't think people came to hear about Elvis or my pet rock. Um,
Well, I don't know. It's it's interesting. All right. SEO questions
Yeah, we'll go ahead and
time.
get started here. We might end up cutting the stream a little short today, but we might not. I know we've said that kind of the last few times, but we'll see.
Maybe kind of, I don't know.
Yeah, let's go ahead and get started. All right. Is there any tool out there that actively tracks and displays some sort of EAT metric for your site and for competitors? No, there is not. Well, actually, for the middle one, A for authority, absolutely. You know, something like Ahrefs or Moz, SEMrush, Majestic, all those things. You know, their main score, their main metric, like for example, Ahrefs DR or Moz's DA. Those are approximate measures of authority, right? You know, it's not exactly how Google sees it, and there's no way to get your hands on the way exactly Google sees it, or everyone would just use that because that would be the best thing. But yeah, I mean, that's the best way to measure authority. The other stuff, expertise and trustworthiness, there's absolutely no like scoring available. As far as expertise goes, you're really just the way people think about it is basically covering a topic fully, and that means not just in a single article, but by covering more content that's similar to that. We call it building topical authority. I guess there's different names for this kind of thing, but or adding quote supporting content. So basically, you know, if we're, for example, we're a link building agency, so to establish ourselves as experts on the topic, we need to have lots of articles on our website about link building, about guest posts, about niche edits, about various kinds of link building, its benefits, yada yada yada. And there's no real way to measure that as far as does Google see you as an expert. But what you can do is go look at your top ranking competitors and just go look up their website and see how many pages they have that are related to certain topics, and then you can find maybe kind of gauge about where you need to be to be seen as an expert. But that kind of thing is like very it's like it's very like non-precise. Like just because they have a certain amount does not mean you need a certain amount. You're really just ballparking it at this point and just saying, I guess this will help me, or this will most likely help me. I mean, it's always good to have supporting content, and it definitely helps. But yeah, you could go check some of the top ranking sites and just see about how much they have on given topics if you want to kind of ballpark it. But there's no real score for that, as far as I know. And then trustworthiness, I think, is the most flimsy out of all of these. Expertise and authority, having a lot of supporting content and having strong backlink profile essentially, I think are actually super duper important. But trustworthiness, I really don't see people talk about this much at all. It's the idea of I think a lot of it comes into like basically having like an author on your website, having an author profile, the author being a real person. I think I've even seen people talk about stuff like like having like an about page on your website, a privacy policy, those kind of things, that just like a contact page, legit contact information. I just don't know how much any of this it's just so hard to quantify how something like this actually helps. The other two, I would say, are much stronger, but trustworthiness, I'm not really sure about at all, to be completely honest with you. It's easy to take care of this stuff, but as far as scores go, it's just not something I would ever really worry about. What do you think about that last one, trustworthiness, Nick?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. If I'm going to try and conceptualize trustworthiness, I mainly consider kind of what the website's doing in the SERPs, and I'm looking at it in relevance to how, trusted they are in Google. If you're talking about the little things that you were discussing, like having an about page, et cetera, authors, et cetera, I think it'd probably be such a minimal amount of influence compared to the other stuff that we do that I don't know. I mean, I do it, but it's not something that I think is going to really change all that much as far as
Yeah.
movement
I've
goes.
seen a lot of people kind of poo-poo on EAT recently because it got so hyped up in the beginning, and then like
Yeah.
most things, they get hyped up. People are like, I don't really know about this. But I'd say the first two are not new ideas at all. They're very old
No.
ideas, actually, and I would consider them like, absolute just best practices. Like you have to be doing this stuff essentially. You need to build
Hmm.
authority. You need to add supporting content, other related articles. But yeah, trustworthiness, I'm very iffy on that one. But yeah, just to kind of wrap things up, you don't really need to.
I mean, okay,
Sorry, go ahead.
so in relevance to this question though, if you're to give them one metric to pay attention to more than the others, which one would you choose? I think we probably
Well,
pick
there's
the
no
same one.
metric for expertise, but for authority, I mean, so authority is really the only metric.
Just for like overall that, like, because it sounds like what they're trying to do is find a metric that like gives them an overall picture of like the site health, right? Like, because if you mix those three, it's like our holy trinity,
So,
sort of,
so
right?
for as for picking one, I wouldn't. I would say you need to build the content up on your site and you need to build your authority. Um,
But doesn't DR take that into account?
A DR, I
I
don't think
thought,
DR takes
or is it
into
just
account the size of your site at
off
all. I
page?
think it's
Oh,
complete off-page metric. Um,
hmm.
yeah, I don't think there's really anything that measures like how well
I
you've
gotta look
covered
that up.
a topic or whatever. Um, but yeah, I mean, some people are gonna be more content centric. Some people are gonna be more backlink centric. We're a link building agency, and we were in the recent past, we were much more backlink centric, but it really seems like content is, I mean, you just have to pay attention. You just get such better results if you pay attention to both. If I had to pay attention to one more than the other, I'd probably say, authority, but don't skip on the content, guys. I'm not giving you the green light to do that. You got anything else to add on that, Nick?
No, you're right about DR. That's interesting. I don't know why I thought it took site size into account. It's
Yeah,
all backlink.
all those authority measuring metrics, they're just purely off-page measurement. How good are your backlinks, essentially? Um, all right. Let's see, we got a question over here. Okay. Example, tier one is a Weebly, which is a Web 2.0. Can I build tier two links? So 100 Web 2.0s and point at tier one Weebly. All Web 2.0 are with high quality content and unique. Kind of want to get out Paint since we haven't used Paint in a while. Let's do a little Paint.
I mean, the answer is
Wait. Let me have my fun here.
all right.
All right, we get a color. So here's the money site.
Nice.
So that's your actual website, right? And then we'll do blue is his Weebly Web 2.0. So it's a little Web 2.0, little mini website. And now he wants to link to his money site from there, right?
Mm.
And now he's saying, I want to build 100 more Web 2.0s as tier 2 links, which means they're all going to link to this Weebly. So essentially he's trying to power up this Weebly with a bunch of other Web 2.0 links. Back to the question, blah, blah, blah. Oops. Kind of blah, blah, blah. So high quality content and unique. So yeah, absolutely you can do this. My problem with this is, so the point that usually when you point links at a Web 2.0, you want you want to kind of piggyback on the authority of the root domain of the Web 2.0. And so essentially you're trying to power this up, trying to power its authority up with more authoritative links. And a lot of times people will use some of the more like black hat stuff for this, for example, PBNs, or just kind of like cheaper stuff on Fiverr or whatever. Usually it's kind of cheaper links because, let's be real, if it's a super good high quality link, you're probably just going to want to point it to your main website instead in most cases, right? I won't say that tiered link building doesn't have any purpose. Tiered link building absolutely is a good thing. Just makes your overall kind of network stronger, and it just adds a little bit of a different element to your link building. But when you're building all these 100 Web 2.0s, it's great that they're all unique and unique content and good content and all that. That's exactly what you need to be doing. The problem is these are all going to be authority level 0. So you're essentially trying to power up a Web 2.0, which has an authority of 0, with a bunch of other Web 2.0s that have an authority of 0. And so it definitely wouldn't be my first choice as far as building tiered links. What do you think about that, Nick?
Yeah, I mean,
It's
whenever
better
I
than nothing.
read, I'm getting 100 tiered link building Web 2.0s, and there's unique content. Sorry, but typically it's BS. Typically 100 Web 2.0s is an
Yeah.
order on some sort of other marketplace
I was
with
just
different
thinking about
kinds of
that too. I was like,
things.
that's a
And
lot of
yeah, it's like you think about how much you have to pay just on like iWriter for
100
garbage
articles.
content,
Yeah.
100, like it doesn't sound very efficient. And like Chris said, if you're going to do that, then why wouldn't you just use those Web 2.0s that are all unique to send press towards your main website? Because the fact of the matter is, over history, a lot of Web 2.0 kind of communities, they do interlink between each other and they do share each other's stories. And, they kind of operate like, real websites. Like that's what they're supposed to do. So when I think about this, it's like, well, best practices that we preach over here when it comes to backlinking in general, that spreads across all tiered link building as well. So if you want to do tiered link building, that's great. It's awesome. But diversify that link profile. So instead of 100 Web 2.0s, 5 Web 2.0s, a few directories, do a blend, blog comments, different things that are going to narrate a different kind of thing to Google crawlers, right? Which is, this isn't cookie cutter kind of stuff you can go order somewhere. It's like, it's a blend of something. And that
Yeah.
diversity is going to take things a lot further. So I would probably think less is going to be more here. Now, mind you, if you are getting 100 tiered Web 2.0 links with unique content at a really good price, then consider maybe breaking that up into multiple networks of tiered Web 2.0. So instead of just the one Weebly getting powered up by 100, let's turn that into 10 Web 2.0s with 10 Web
That's a really good
2.0s
idea.
attached to them, right? So
And
just
then mix
spread it
in
out a
some
bit.
other stuff as well, like maybe a little PBN at each one,
Yeah.
to kind of mix it up rather than this a bunch of Web 2.0s
But
everywhere.
but
So
also, oh, sorry.
he actually added another part to the question, which is, can I interlink all of them? And to that point, I would say I wouldn't want to do that. You're at that point, you're kind of starting to build what we call like a footprint, right? You're showing Google that all of these things that you're using to power up your site are not individual sources of link
Right.
juice, but rather one person that's working to create some kind of network of sites linking to a site, right? So, if we think about this like in the case of PBNs, that's a very, 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 very big no-no. You
Yeah.
just get popped instantly, right?
Yeah, but even
Um,
with, I mean, we had a client in MLB recently who was doing that with what are essentially a network of money sites. And when we saw that, okay, well, here's the red flag that's stopping this thing from moving is that they've got a network of sites that even if there's nothing that's concrete against TOS that's going to de-index the site, it's unnatural. So if something looks completely odd, like something's being manipulated, why would Google even take the risk of rewarding that site in the SERPs? This is the kind of stuff we're trying to prevent. You do not want to look like an SEO. And the more you try and pay attention to what's natural in the SERPs, which can actually be a wide variety of different things, the more you're going to be able to get longevity out of these networks that you're trying to build. But typically, yeah, try and keep things looking like they belong to different individuals, and you're going to resonate a lot more, a lot better. Well,
all right. So yeah, I mean, just my whole feel from this surrender is it feels like you're really trying to like up your link building game, and I'm guessing it's because it sounds like maybe budget's a concern or whatever, and you're just kind of trying to figure out some kind of way to go about things to kind of really try to like game the system. And we're open to the more black hat ideas as well, even though we're definitely more we like to build in a much more like sustainable kind
I'll
of white slash gray hat way these days. But I just feel like even as a black hat tactic, this is pretty weak, right? Just unless the 100 Web 2.0s is a network of Web 2.0s that someone owns and they have built these up over time and have links pointing to them as well, which have increased their authority, then they would make much better tier two links. But even then, like Nick said, it'd be much better to kind of mix it up, spread them out between multiple tier ones, and kind of throw a little bit of a mix in there, right? Even if it's just stuff like citations or profiles or PBN here and there or some low authority edits or something like that. Um, but yeah, I mean, if they're just fresh Web 2.0s though, I just don't really see too much of a benefit in this. And I would say you'd be much better off, instead of spending your time doing this, just focus on, quality links straight to your money site. Even if it's just good old fashioned outreach, or try to get some haro links or something like that. Um, yeah. Anything else to add on that, Nick?
the only time you're going to see this kind of thing work, if it's what I kind of imagine that it is when you're strategically using spam mixed in with like blue chip links, so to speak, to kind of emulate rapid growth and press.
Yeah.
But that's a way advanced tactic, and this on its own isn't going to do anything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
So yeah, essentially even like the blog comments, even though a
mhm.
lot of them are no follow and whatnot, they carry some authority to them. And so when you start mixing out like spam blog comments with, I don't know, or those like spam info domains and whatever else people like to
Yeah.
use these days, I mean, then you're really starting to create more of like a black hat recipe, right? But yeah, the Web 2.0s alone, I just don't really know how much that's going to do for you. Probably not too much. Um, all right, I think we can go ahead and move on from there. Is deleting old posts that get no traffic a good idea? Um, so I actually don't have too much experience with this, but I've seen people talk quite a bit a lot about deleting old posts but it's generally in the case of extremely large websites. In general, if you have a smaller site, and what I mean by small is even like a few hundred URLs, right? I wouldn't start worrying about deleting old posts that get no traffic unless you're talking about, websites with thousands and thousands of URLs, and you're really trying to basically what they would say like optimize your crawl budget at this point. And they have no chance of generating traffic, and they're just kind of these things that are just never going to have any kind of future, right? But if they're just old posts on your website and your site isn't that large, I guess it still depends. Like, are they not getting traffic because they're not ranking? Are they not getting traffic because they just don't have any kind of good keyword terms? If it's not ever going to rank for anything and it really has no purpose at all, sure, maybe you could delete it and 301 it to something else on your site that's related or whatever, just to kind of use it as supporting content in a way. But you could also just leave it if your site's not super big. I don't know. I'm not real big one way or another, unless you have, like I said before, a real big website and you're trying to kind of optimize things as far as crawl budget goes. What do you think, Nick?
So it's going to depend on, is there a reason that, like you said, that these aren't getting any traffic? So then you're basically auditing the content. Like, is there keyword cannibalization? Is there something going on where this is just like a bunch of pages with thin content that's actually going to probably hurt your rankings more than help you at all, because it's all just thin, spread out, blown out. But Google can kind of tell it's not going to help anybody. If you can look at this content and say, no, it's really good information, but it just doesn't fall under any specific SERP that might get traffic, etc., then it can be used, especially if you consider maybe these are old pages that have a couple links going to them or something like that. On a couple of sites that I have what are essentially kind of like ghost pages, old pages that had a lot of press going to them that will never rank for anything, that I use as hub pages, and I literally spam inner links in there. So those are pages that I would never expect to get anywhere. However, they do serve a purpose. So this question being so broad, it's kind of hard to tell you whether deleting them is a good idea, but it would be based on what exactly these pages are doing and whether it's worthwhile to keep them or not, based on things like, are they cannibalizing other keywords? Is there thin content? Are there backlinks going at these pages? And are they worth, saving? Or like Chris said, you can always redirect them.
Yeah. So some definitely good points in there. If you end up deleting them, definitely redirect, right? Especially if they have like backlinks going to them.
Yeah.
One thing we also didn't cover is that maybe they're like zero search volume keywords, but maybe Google
Right.
still understands that they're part of this basic, covering a topic fully. And if that's the case, they don't need traffic to serve their purpose. Their purpose, could you be showing to Google, like we were talking about on one of the last questions, that you are an expert of the topic, your expertise as far as EAT goes, the E. And in that case, so like I said, yeah, it could definitely serve a purpose without generating any kind of traffic. And yeah, you just use it to basically link to your more important articles related to that topic, just to basically serve as supporting content for it. But yeah, in general, we're pretty like against just like deleting stuff. It would have to be like pretty like absolutely worthless, right? It just like serves no purpose at all for us to want to delete it, or like I said before, real large site and trying to just free up some crawl space essentially. But even that, I'm not like super duper sold on. But I know some people are pretty into it. Got anything else to add on that, Nick?
No, I think that's about it.
All right. Yeah, Teeth. He says they're no indexed, just URL with CSS stuff. Yeah, I mean it sounds like pretty worthless if they're no indexed. It's just a URL with some CSS in it. So it sounds like they're really like doing nothing. In that case, you probably could go ahead and delete them, right? But yeah, make sure they don't got any backlinks or anything going to them. They might have accidentally got some backlinks from just whatever,
Well, yeah, if
sites
they're,
naturally.
I mean, if they're no index though, it's like it doesn't really matter if they are on the site or not, really.
And he's saying they're just like it's just like the URL with some CSS styling, right? Like changing the font and the colors and stuff. So
Gotcha. Yeah, you'd probably do away with it.
yeah,
I don't imagine it's going to do anything for you SEO wise,
no.
but if it feels less clunky or something, it's good.
All right. Let's see what we got next. Do you think the number of reviews on Google or Yelp helps your SEO business? Absolutely. Um, yeah, absolutely. Especially in the case of local SEO, right? Reviews are really a big thing. Um, yeah, I mean, I don't think there's really any way around that. Of course, there's other ranking factors, and depending like where you show up on the maps and your location, your website, your authority, your citations, your supporting content, your blah blah blah. There's a ton of other things as well. But yeah, having good quality reviews, replying to those reviews, getting some like kind of keywords in your reviews type thing without being like spammy or anything like that. These are pretty important stuff for local. Um, you got anything else out on that one, Nick?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would say that I agree with you that they do help SEO, but as far as like being like a very noticeable factor that I say I spend a lot of time on my own projects, getting Google and Yelp reviews, the answer is I don't really. Which isn't to say that they can't help, but I don't know if I consider them like a really strong variable when it comes to SEO.
Yeah, I can't
You
really
know,
speak to how strong they are just with how little local I do these days. Um, but just from
they're going to help your conversion at the very least. Like if
for
people are
sure.
saying that kind of stuff, right, then it's definitely good for you. But from an SEO perspective, when I'm working campaigns, though I will tailor in some Google reviews and Yelp reviews, it's kind of hard to fake those now. So typically you've got to ask a wide array of people from your own network and diversified locations to kind of leave those for you so that it's kind of,
Or
emulating
just
reality.
push to get them from clients.
Yeah, you can do that as well, right? It just depends on, I guess, what you're building, affiliate site or an actual local site,
Yeah, so
local
maybe
business,
if it's
etc.
completely fresh, maybe you start off with people doing it, or
But
maybe even buying reviews. I don't know what even the buying reviews scene looks like these days,
yeah,
um, but
it's not that great.
maybe trying to get them in a little more of a quote black hat way, and then after that you can start pushing clients to leave reviews. But yeah, I can't really speak to how much exactly it helps, but um, I have been kind of trying to brush up on my local just to kind of stay a little bit in the know on it, a little more than I have been. And yeah, I see people kind of still really pumping them up, but then again, you can't really believe everything you see these days. Because like for example, uh, we're a link building agency, and so we see so much stuff in around online about link building that's just complete garbage that we 100% disagree with. So I guess I could be at fault here as well. But it definitely can't hurt you, and I,
Right.
I would I would expect that it would help at least, maybe not as significantly as having nice backlinks and good content, but I think it's probably a pretty decent thing you can do, especially Google reviews, right? I mean, it's
Yeah,
just
worth
plugging
doing.
straight into Google and uh, beefing up your GMB and whatnot. Um, yeah, anyway, hopefully that helps. Let's see. Got one over here on Facebook. Do you believe that the type of backlinking that works depends on the niche that you're in? In most cases for this question, I would say no, but the answer is actually yes. I think when you get to uh, some what they call like the bad neighborhood niches is specifically what I'm thinking about when you're talking about like, for example, like gambling, where PBNs are much more widespread and black hat tactics seem to work quite well. And it seems like everyone's using these things. So in those niches, just the backlinking game is completely different. And in a lot of cases, you probably actually need to do that kind of stuff to succeed, right? But for the other, 99% of niches, just we'll say normal niches, that aren't known for this type of thing, I wouldn't say there's a real big difference at all. For local, citations are obviously going to be more important, but for everything else, just getting links from real websites that post content that's related to your stuff, it's good for you. Doesn't matter, it can be a guest post, it can be a niche edit, it can be a horror link, it can be an editorial link, it can be a PBN link used in moderation, of course. All this stuff is going to be really good for you, and it doesn't really matter what your niche is. You got anything to add on that, Nick?
Yeah, overall, I'd agree. Like, I think you see that that change a lot easier when you get out to the bad neighborhood niches like adult gambling, etc., right? Where spam is a more natural thing. But if we think about that, then I'd have to say that Google probably does have these sort of umbrella groups that niches fall under, where they are analyzing the backlink profiles and what's common across all of these. So if you're in a niche where you see a lot more authority websites popping up in the tops, you'll want to kind of emulate what they're doing versus what you might see on a local website. And vice versa, because sometimes you can over optimize something that just looks a little bit too outlandish for where it's supposed to fall into place, if that makes sense. So like if the top 3 positions in a local SERP are mom and pop shops with like 20 referring domains, sometimes if you come in there and try and muscle in with something that's got 600 referring domains, you're going to see a little bit of pushback. So I do think that depending on the niche, you can find correlations of what looks natural in those SERPs by kind of combing what everybody else is doing. But in what Chris said, like the normal niches, you're not going to see that big of a variance where I imagine like you've got to change all that much. At least, it's not something that I've noticed. One other thing worth noting, not only the niche, but the geographic region can also have an influence on what you can get away with as far as backlinking goes. In some countries, or some languages rather, you can get away with a lot more spam than you can, in like English SERPs or Spanish SERPs, even for that matter.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are 2 really good points. Local is kind of its own thing, but then across like local's all kind of the same-ish, right? And then, like you said before, definitely foreign sites, you can definitely get away with more black hat kind of spammier stuff if that's what you're into. But we don't really know how long it's going to take Google to catch up
Right.
with the other languages and stuff. So it's not exactly super safe, but historically, it's been easier to get away with any kind of links more over there or in other languages. Yep. But yeah, for normal stuff, if you're just talking about just local, or you're talking about just like affiliate or whatever, the types of links that people use, it's all really the same stuff, right? Quality links from real websites, with the exception of PBNs, which aren't real websites, but it is someone else's website. And it's contextual, it's in a blog post. But yeah, hopefully that helps answer your question. Let's see. Is TF and CF an important factor for guest post backlinks? To be completely honest with you, I don't look at CF and TF at all. For our guest posts, we do sell guest posts. I believe we have a bare minimum of 5, but we like to have them up around 10. But yeah, that's more in place because some people like it rather than something that we think is super duper important. But it does help kind of like automate the whole system in a way, with just making sure things are looking healthy on the back end. But you know, when I'm looking at sites myself, I don't really pay much attention to CF and TF when judging the value of a backlink. Do you, Nick?
So the only time I really use CF
Domain
and
hunting?
TF is domain hunting. Yeah. Because I'm blanketing like a large query and I have to start off with some metrics, right? So I do look at DA. I'll look at DR if I've got Ahrefs available, but it's kind of expensive to try and blanket with them now. Anyhow, so then other obvious ones are CFTF, and I like to kind of look at them in conjunction with one another versus, independently. Now, I will say that I don't really care how high they are. I more so look for them to be kind of equal. And I guess, yeah, typically, it's like 5 minimum or something. But uh, there's so much room for a variation in what CFTF says than what I come to find when I actually explore some of these backlinks myself, that I would say it's, not reliable to just gauge anything by those two metrics. However, when blanketing and looking at kind of a broad spectrum of different websites, help kind of break things down into smaller groups for you. But that would be the only time I really put much weight into TFCF.
I
Not to
honestly
say that
can't.
I don't think it's a bad metric. Don't get me wrong. If I had to think about it, DR, DA even, and CFTF together can kind of give you a nice broad picture of things.
What is SEMrush's metric?
I was just actually kind of thinking about that.
Because yeah, I was thinking about it in one of the last questions. I can't even remember the last time I used SEMrush. I can't actually even remember the last time I went into our
Yeah,
Majestic account. I really never use it
yeah.
myself. Um, but yeah, I don't even know what SEMrush's main metric is.
That's what I'm trying to look for it right now because I haven't been in SEM Rush in I don't know how long.
And I'm actually also surprised because SEMrush seems to be kind of the tides seem to be kind of shifting to people liking SEMrush now because of Ahrefs' new pricing
Yeah,
structure.
let's talk about that. What a
Well, I don't.
mess. God,
It just seems kind of crazy. I don't
it's
want to really
crazy.
go too much into it, but there, yeah, it hasn't affected us yet because we're on we have a legacy account, an older account, but apparently it's going to affect us too. So I guess we'll have to see exactly how much it affects us. Um, so yeah, maybe maybe in a couple months I'll be
We'll be
saying CF
talking.
and TF is way better, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
um, but yeah, what? All right, did you look up SEMrush's metric? Did you see what it was?
Mm-mm. No, I was just looking around in their pictures of their dashboard. Oh, sorry,
Is
there's
someone
a
mowing by you?
lawnmower. Yeah.
That's really loud. Okay. But yeah, anyway, CF and TF definitely useful. It's not something I really look at a lot myself. You know, if you wanted to kind of emulate what our guest post service does, you could do like minimum of 5 is what you'd look for, or 10 or whatever. And after that, you could just look at other stuff. But you know, if you're looking through the backlinks yourself, you're kind of getting a good idea of their site and it looks healthy and whatnot. It's got decent authority. Not absolutely necessary, but definitely something you can look at, and definitely not the worst for the metrics. Um, all right, let's see what we got next. Amar on YouTube says for SEMrush, it's just called authority score. So would people abbreviate it AS? Oh yeah, he said AS for SEMrush. But it has a toxic backlink score. We are actually not fans of the toxic backlink score at all. We think the toxic backlink score is like really like kind of like marketing hype type stuff. And we see a lot of people like disavowing stuff because their SEMrush is saying they're toxic and whatnot. And Yeah, just absolutely not.
Typically, it's a mistake.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that can be such a huge mistake, and people they get real panicky about it, and oh my God, I got this backlink and it's toxic, and but I have 500 other referring domains and hardly any of them are toxic. Am I gonna no, calm down, keep the link. It's probably gonna help you.
It's good to have a little toxicity here and there.
Yeah, yeah. Out of all the metrics we just talked about, the spam score is the one I would just not even look at all, to be completely honest. Um, but yeah. So AS, keep that in mind. Authority score. All right. Looks like we are running out of time, guys. If you got any questions left, go ahead and drop them in the chat and we will get to you. How often do you check your rankings? How often do you think you should check? So I go through like phases with this. I'll go through phases where I don't check my rankings, less than once a month even, where I just don't care at all. I might look at like my just like the Ahrefs like general chart real quick. But I just might just be really going full steam ahead on other stuff and not really focusing on the nitty gritty of individual rankings. And then I'll go back later and kind of see where things are and see what needs to be maybe re-optimized or had content added to it or whatnot, or why isn't this ranking? But I go through kind of phases rather than keeping tabs on stuff like every single day. I know some people check every single day. I don't really see too much of a problem with that if you're not spending too much time on it. How often should you check? I'd probably say for the sake of time, you don't really need to check more than I'd say once every 2 weeks or so. I'd say checking, less than that, maybe you should keep an eye on them than I do, but I don't know. What do you think, Nick? I don't really feel one way or another on this.
Well, it's like it kind of just hit me. I was like, maybe there's like a. Sorry, this guy keeps mowing the lawn right outside the window.
Here, I'll put a picture of a lawnmower up.
Nice, thanks. Yeah, what I just realized is I check my money way more than I check my rankings.
Oh yeah, I check that every day.
So that's kind of interesting. I'm like, maybe that's like an SEO maturity. It's like once all the assets start, they're monetized and you're kind of spread. You're spread pretty thin when it comes to conceptualizing your rankings and being able to like monitor absolutely everything you're doing. That money, I think, kind of gives you a better view of what's going on than actually the rankings. And then a lot of times, if I see something that doesn't look quite right, then I'll go in and audit the rankings. However, that's not to say that I'm not in there at least. I'm probably in there a couple times a week. But I'm checking on different assets, right? I'm not just checking on the same ones over and over and over again. At the very least, you're going to want to check things once a month, right? If you're kind of taking a broad picture to things and, you just got to make sure that your networks are maintaining. I think if you're probably like a smaller SEO, like getting on at least once every 2 weeks or every week, and just kind of analyzing what's going on is probably okay. However, on a week to week, unless there's some kind of real big shift in the SERPs, like an algo update or something like that, then you might just be nitpicking at stuff.
Yeah.
Because volatility happens in the SERPs. It's natural.
And you don't need to react right away.
No, you don't. As a matter of fact, if you're over paying attention and you start letting every little drop or blip affect your mental state, you're going to make a lot of mistakes. A lot of times less is going to be more in analyzing what's going on. And with slow movements in the SERPs, I would say typically having a more broad focused picture of things is going to be advantageous to you.
Yeah, so that's what I was kind of saying with the 2 weeks to 1 month thing was that, basically I wouldn't start to worry about something moving unless it's been like that for 2 weeks to a month. And it's like, whoa, okay, it's not just a blip. It looks like it might be a little more permanent. I might not actually need to do something about this. rather than someone that's asking this question is probably kind of newer to SEO. If they're checking their rankings every day, they see that they lost, 8 spots overnight from page 1 to page 2 or whatever, and they're gonna waste their whole day. Their whole day is down the drain because
What
they're
did I do wrong? Oh my gosh, I need it back. Oh my gosh, I was there.
and probably more than just that day, right? They're gonna be going crazy trying to figure out what it is, and then it could just pop back,
We say this
in
because
2
we've
days.
been there.
Oh yeah,
Right? Like we've been
absolutely.
there. Like we know the stress is real. And when you learn to kind of breathe and let things occur as they should,
Yeah.
you'll make less mistakes.
It's one thing for
Because
people to
SEO
say.
moves slow.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, that was it. SEO moves slow.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It's one thing to hear people tell you SEO moves slow. Things take time. Don't react right away. I know people hear it all the time, but when it actually happens to you, you go, "Oh God!" And then they all that goes out the window, and I of course am guilty of this as well. Even if I see like a big blip on something important, and even now, I'm like, "Oh God!" Like it legitimately scares me, and I have to talk myself down from going and spending too much time on it until it's
It
basically
can
confirmed that it's not just a blip and it's a longer term trend.
Yeah, it can also get kind of dangerous if you don't understand that when you get like a really good rip in the SERPs, where you jump up 20,000 traffic in a month or whatever, there's going to be a kind of reset period, a correction period in the graph. It will happen. It doesn't matter whether you're doing everything properly or not. And, you can kind of debate what the reasoning is for this correction. My assumption is that typically Google kind of blows your asset out all over the SERPs and then gets data on how well received it is and where it's supposed to fit in, et cetera. And then you get kind of like a culling off of like the greater portions
Yeah.
of organic keywords and traffic and stuff like that. And you'll come to find a lot of people think they're freaking out or start freaking out because they think, oh, well, I got it to rip in the SERPs and now something doesn't look natural and it's not trusted. And then they start disavowing and doing all this other stuff when really it was just a correction period. And sometimes those might take a while. But if you just got 20,000 monthly traffic in 1 month off the rip, then just calm down and see where like the equilibrium kind of happens. And then also don't just pay attention to what Ahrefs or some other metric or different graph. You want a whole kind of broad view of what analytics is saying, et cetera, because also sometimes during that die off of like especially organic keywords, you'll come to find that the terms that
You're
it
losing
did give
junk.
you, yeah, you're losing junk, exactly, and the traffic terms are starting to go up. So that's also not cause for concern, and that's also why sometimes looking at the money, if you got that luxury with the asset and it's already monetized, is a better indicator of the health of what's going on, or at least traffic to your Amazon affiliates or whatever else. That's a good indicator of health.
But yeah, just to tie it up, don't check them too often. It's not good for your health. And unless you check them every day because you're OCD and then you have it in your mind, I'm not reacting if I see a 1 day blip or whatever. But yeah,
But don't you think that's like it's like think about the discipline you've got to have to do that. And then if you're checking every day, you just subconsciously you're focused on the micro
yeah.
details. And SEO has to be about broad
But
picture,
we're
in my
also so
opinion.
starved for the dopamine hits, right? We're so
Yeah.
starved because everything is such this long grind with no real connection between what's
Yeah.
causing things to go up, and it's never instant. So, the poor SEO crawling to see his rankings in the morning, and maybe he
Yeah.
gets a little dopamine hit instead of nothing that says, "Hey, good job, bud."
Just check your crypto crash and see how much money you lost there, and you won't want to check any other graphs.
True, true. All right. I believe we got one more question and we'll call it after that. All right, let's see. What is the ideal anchor profile spread for a page? Let's say I want to rank for best hat in the US. How many times I can use that anchor text that's still considered safe other than brand and naked anchor? So you're talking about using how many times can you use exact match anchors? And it doesn't have to be just brand and naked anchors. You could also do generic anchors like click, here or this article, stuff like that. You could also do long tail anchors or variations of the exact match. There's a lots of stuff you could play in here. You could also do topical anchors, which are generally more like general. So for example, best hat in the US, a topical anchor could be just this hat or just hat even. It's definitely not an exact match, and it's super general, so it's almost like a generic anchor. So there's lots of other stuff you could do. But there's really there's no guideline here. There's no, this is the way things should be number. When in doubt, just like everything else, what you can do is just pop in some of your the top ranking um, pages for that term and go see what their ratio is like. But in general, it's going to be pretty low. You don't want too many exact match anchors in there. You want to have more of the natural stuff, and then definitely get it in there, but don't overdo it. So that's my best advice is always just to see kind of what the other people in your niche are doing, and just kind of go from there. And ballpark it. You don't have to be exact or anything. It's not super important. The most important thing is that you don't go crazy with it, right? That you don't over optimize. So with exact match anchors, less is better than more. Get in different keyword variations, get in the long tails, get in some topical stuff if you're in doubt. What do you think, Nick?
Yeah. There's different recipes like, Chris was alluding to with check out your competition and what they're doing that are going to get you into different SERPs or that are going to look like what's natural for particular SERPs. The issue is that when you consider the type of backlinks that different websites get and stuff, then there's a lot of different variables like power, trust, etc., that are going to go into the value of that link that's using said anchor, etc. So just to give you an idea of what I do, which there might be SEOs that are, quote, more efficient than me, but this is how I like to build. And typically I'm concerned with having longevity in the SERPs. I don't go back to exact match anchors very often. So let's say hypothetically that over the course of a couple months, I've hit a inner page with 10 links. Of those, I don't imagine I'd repeat a money anchor. But maybe one time. And that's only if I see somebody doing it a lot or that I see some movement, maybe I want to prod at it. But typically, I'm trying to use money anchors as little as possible, using kind of higher authority, more powerful types of backlinks, not PBNs. I actually like to use all natural stuff, typically to the homepage with PBN, but I will use a higher end guest post or a higher end niche edit to try and influence a money anchor. And so those are kind of like the type of things that I like to look at when trying to decide what kind of anchors to use. And then using time, I'm just going to kind of see what that particular page is doing in the SERPs. Now, this is easier for me, I would say, than maybe the person asking this question because this is an assumption. So let's just talk about it. If you're newer to SEO and you find this term and you really, really want to rank for it, that obsession can lead to your demise too by over optimizing a specific inner page or getting too obsessed with trying to hit money anchors when really time sometimes is the only thing you need. A lot of times my backlinking campaign might hit a particular inner page 3 months before I ever see movement. And over the course of that 3 months, I'm not repeating more links to that inner page. I'm strategically hitting other inner pages. And then eventually And once I see some kind of movement in the SERP, I'll come back, reassess what I think that particular inner page could use to bump it up a little bit more, and then I'll go from there, right? So I take a broader position about trying to attack SERPs, and I'm looking more at growing the entire asset or money side as a whole, if that makes sense.
I want to add one more thing as well. So you can have more exact match anchors than just one for one inner page. So,
Mm-hmm.
example, best hat in US, maybe, another high volume keyword for that would be best hat US, or just best hat or popular hat in US. Maybe these are all important keywords for that page. Um, and it's important to say that if you just hit each one of those one time, that's still very unnatural because those are all different exact match anchors.
Variations, yeah.
And we saw this recently on a site that we started building links to, and they had done a bunch of link building before they came to us, and it was having some trouble, and that's exactly what they had done. And so when you looked at it right away, they had a bunch of natural stuff up near the top, most of the that was being reused over many times. And so at first you're like, oh, this looks pretty good, but then you start scrolling down and it's just like exact, just a ton of different exact match anchors that are slightly different. So they weren't really using one of them too many times, but they were using tons of exact match anchors a decent amount of times. And so, yeah, definitely be careful with that as well. Get in your other stuff as well. And like Nick was saying, you could save your big important anchor text for some big beefy links that you buy just to try to kind of get more bang for your buck out of them. But yeah, anything else to add on that, Nick?
Yeah, no, not really. Just, I guess, yeah, well, let's talk about. No, yeah, no, we're good.
But yeah, when in doubt, look at your competitors, kind of take an average or whatever, and it's definitely better to be safe rather than to go too hard, right?
Well, okay. Sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just saying,
Oh,
look at your competitors and go. If you're not sure, it's better to be safe than to go too hard. You're not going to get yourself in trouble because you have too few exact match anchors, but you can get yourself in trouble for having too many. So, yeah, just don't go crazy.
a lot of people, I think, dismiss the value of having a massive authority figure of a site behind you, and how over the years, my preference from being very targeted in the SERPs has shifted towards wanting to be a authority figure in a particular niche or sub
You mean
niche
like an authority site?
category. Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So predominantly, I'm focused every month on building the homepage up, especially in the form of backlinks, natural anchors, etc. And what you'll come to find as you do that, as you need less towards the inner pages, especially if you're using optimized content, like, all my SOP is surfer optimized content using outlines that I create based on SERPs that I'm looking at. If you're doing that, you'll come to find that a lot of times you might auto rank without backlinks, just based on majority of your budget over a long period of time.
Just to interrupt you real quick, I see some people they say like, hey, I ranked this keyword without links, and then you go and you're like, well, what's the website? You type in the website and it says massive authority site, and you're like, that's not without links. So like, sure, that page doesn't have any links, but yeah, you have this massive authority site. So yeah, that's.
Yeah, so I think what happens with some newer SEOs is they get really obsessed with, they want to get into profit really quick. They want that money return. They want to be able to roll that. The fact of the matter is, if you roll things safely into building optimized content, and strategically building up the hub pages, and the home page is a hub page to that particular asset, then it takes less links, and you can use them more efficiently later on down the road to get rankings out of those. And so the juice is worth the squeeze towards the end there if you've got a long-term goal set with what you're building. And that, over the years is, I mean, I don't shift from that. I don't build sniper sites anymore that are directed at, you know, specific SERPs for X amount of time. They just don't work as well. And once you've got the budget and you can conceptualize a goal set for at least 6 months, then building something like that is in the end far more efficient and makes more money than the opposite.
So yeah, bit of an extreme tangent there, talking about authority sites now. But yeah, don't go crazy with your exact match. Get the natural stuff in. Yeah. And I think that is it, guys. Yeah, thanks for showing up. Hopefully our answers helped you. And yeah, I think we're going to, yeah, uh, we're most likely not going to be around next week, but we might be. And yeah,
Like,
after
comment,
that,
subscribe.
oh God, we didn't say it any times this time. Yeah, please like, comment, subscribe, and join us in the Facebook group SEO Roundtable. All right, guys, see you next time.